You can twist a story, but you can't twist reality forever. Sooner or later, the mask falls and the truth hits like an explosion. That's exactly what's happening now, Chosen One. The lies they built about you weren't harmless whispers, they were live wires, and now those wires have crossed. Sparks are flying. People who once smiled in each other's faces are at each other's throats, and the center of that storm isn't money, politics, or petty drama. It's you. You've become the mirror they didn't want to look into. Now, imagine this for a moment. Chosen One. Two people who once conspired together, standing on opposite sides of a room, shouting over each other. Voices cracking like thunder, their hands trembling as words cut deeper than knives. They thought they were clever, thought their lies about you would never see daylight. But like a hidden fault line under pressure, it only takes one tremor for the ground to split open. And now here they are, standing on shaky earth, their secret exposed to everyone watching. Here's a fact that should settle in your bones. In behavioral psychology, suppressed emotions act like compressed gas. The more someone tries to bury their true feelings, the more violent the release when the seal breaks. Another fact? People who invent lies about others often begin believing their own fabrications, but when reality confronts them, the dissonance is unbearable. That's why their anger spills out in public explosions. That's why their fight feels like a confession disguised as rage. And all of it, Chosen One, circles back to you, not because you did anything wrong, but because your presence forces the truth to surface. And thank you, Chosen One. Don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing like and subscribe to help spread this light to more souls. It's all of our responsibility to carry this mission forward. You're not just a listener, you're part of a force. Thank you for being part of this movement. Now, back to what's really happening here. This fight wasn't some random outburst. It was a powder keg waiting for a spark. For months, maybe years, they have been pretending you're irrelevant, telling themselves and others that you don't matter. They rehearsed their fake stories like bad actors reading from a script. But the universe has a way of tearing up scripts when the performance is built on lies. And tonight, that script got shredded in real time. Words were thrown like grenades, each one leaking the truth they were too afraid to say out loud. Every accusation, every insult had your name written between the lines. You need to see this clearly, Chosen One. They aren't angry just at each other. They're angry because you've become a mirror reflecting their hypocrisy back at them. Your existence exposes the cracks in their facade, and for people built on pretense, that's a nightmare. Instead of dealing with their own contradictions, they project it onto the nearest person, each other. That's why the room feels like it's on fire, why every sentence they speak carries the weight of a confession. When someone lies about how they feel about you, it's not just a story that unravels, it's their entire image. Every fake smile they ever use to hide contempt, every casual "I don't care" they rehearse to look indifferent, every sneaky act to cover their tracks. Moments like this drag it all into the light. And the best part? You didn't have to lift a single finger. The universe did the heavy work while you stayed still, watching the dominoes fall one by one. Think about it. On the surface, it looks like an argument between two people, but beneath it is a storm of guilt, jealousy, attraction, and unfinished business, all centered around you. Even if they don't say your name during the fight, both of them know exactly who sits at the center of the storm. You, the chosen one, the one they can't erase, no matter how hard they try. What they don't realize yet is that this explosion is only the beginning. Once the truth about how they really feel is out there, it can't be taken back. It will rewrite how they see each other, how they treat you, and even how they view themselves. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. You can't put the fire back in the match once it's lit. This fight will echo in their minds long after the shouting stops, and every time they replay it, your presence will still be there, unshakable, undeniable, unstoppable. Their lies didn't just fall apart. They detonated, sending shrapnel into every part of their lives. And while they're bleeding from the truth, you're standing untouched, protected by the very force they tried to manipulate. Here's another fact that screams your right to feel this validation. Studies in social dynamics show that when two or more people are bonded by a shared false narrative, that bond collapses the moment the narrative is exposed. Without the glue of a mutual lie, their alliance becomes rivalry. That's what you're seeing unfold now. They were allies when they were smearing your name. Now they're enemies, ripping each other apart, while your reputation rises from their ashes. This isn't just drama. This is a textbook case of projection and collapse. They spent so long trying to bury the truth about you, trying to paint you as the problem, that now they're drowning in the very paint they used. They tried to make you look like the villain, but now the mask is slipping off the real offenders. And as much as they'd like to act like this is about something else, deep down they know the fight is really about you. The person they couldn't outshine, couldn't control, and couldn't erase. So, Chosen One, are you ready to pull back the curtain? Because what we're about to unpack isn't gossip, it's the raw truth hiding in plain sight. You've been blamed, doubted, and painted as the problem while you were innocent the whole time. Now, the mask is slipping, and everyone can see who's been playing games. People are furious, and by the end of this, you'll understand why. This isn't just a story. It's a mirror of the games people play and the lies they tell when they're desperate. If you're truly a chosen one, you're going to feel it in your gut as we go through this. A mix of validation, clarity, and fire rising in your chest. That's why you need to stay with me until the very last word. Each step will hit harder than the last. Now settle in, stay sharp, and let's dive into how their ugly lies turned into a war they never thought they'd have to fight. And listen closely, Chosen One. This is where everything starts to heat up. What you've just heard is only the surface of the firestorm. The real shock is still coming, and you don't want to blink when it hits. Thank you for being here and for standing with this message. Your energy keeps this light moving through the noise. If you're feeling the tremble in your chest right now, drop the number 777 in the comments to mark that you're ready to see through the lies that sparked this explosive fight. And if you're able, bless the team behind this message with a super thanks, whether it's a cent or 1,000. It's the fuel that makes it possible to bring truth to the surface for souls like you. Your support turns whispers into megaphones. Now settle in and stay with me, because what comes next cuts deeper and explains exactly why the universe made sure their lies blew up in public. If you are truly a chosen one, you'll feel the pull to stay until the very end. This is where the curtain lifts, the masks fall, and the real story begins. Let's step right into it. Number 1, when their own lies became their executioner. You can throw mud for years, but one day the rain will come and drown you in it. That's exactly what happened to them, Chosen One. The day their lies circled back wasn't a soft landing. It was a public execution of their own credibility. For months, even years, they thought they were safe behind their stories, rewriting you out of their lives like you were some footnote they could erase. But lies don't just sit quietly in the dark. They're like hidden explosives, wired to go off at the moment of greatest impact. And when they detonated, the blast didn't just destroy their mask, it blew apart the stage they'd been performing on. Think about it. You probably sensed the tremors long before they hit. The nervous glances, the fake smiles, the whispered, "It's nothing," when your name came up. They thought if they repeated their narrative enough times, it would become reality. But the truth doesn't suffocate under repetition. It breathes, it grows, and when it's strong enough, it doesn't knock politely. It kicks the door off its hinges and storms the room. That's what you witnessed. Their words turned into weapons, but the ricochet hit them, not you. Their performance collapsed, their script burned, and all they could do was watch it happen. You might be asking yourself right now, why did this take so long? Why didn't the truth come out sooner? Because, chosen one, the universe waits for the perfect moment. Lies are like termites. They hollow the structure quietly. It's only when the weight of reality presses down that the whole thing gives way. And when it does, it's never subtle. It's violent, it's loud, it's humiliating. That's the price of deception. The more they built their story on you as the villain, the more dramatic their downfall would be when the mask cracked. Picture it vividly. Two of them, maybe more, locked in a confrontation they can't walk away from. Their voices are jagged, breaking like glass. Their hands tremble. Every insult they spit is a confession in disguise. They're not arguing about bills or petty misunderstandings. They're fighting because of you, your name, your presence, your truth that refused to be buried. You became the fault line under their fragile world. One wrong word, one slip of honesty, and the whole thing shook until it split wide open. And here's the part that should light a fire in you, chosen one. You didn't have to lift a single finger. You didn't have to plot revenge or force the truth out. This wasn't your fight to win. The universe timed it so perfectly that all you had to do was exist while they drowned in their own poison. That's the real power of truth. It doesn't need you to defend it or shout it from rooftops. It waits until it's undeniable and then tears the mask off without warning. Maybe you're wondering, but how does this help me? How is their fight supposed to give me strength? Because this is your proof. This is your validation. People can twist stories for a while, but they can't outrun reality forever. And when their lies come home, they don't knock politely. They tear the walls down around them. The same voices that once whispered against you are now shouting at each other, exposing every fake smile, every hidden motive, every little detail they thought would stay hidden. This is what happens when you stand still in your truth. They unravel. Imagine a dam holding back a flood. For years, the cracks deepen, but the surface looks calm. Then one day, with no warning, the pressure is too much and the entire structure bursts. Water doesn't trickle out. It crashes through with unstoppable force. That's their lies. That's their fight. And you're standing on high ground, untouched, watching the flood sweep through the valley below. Another question might be echoing in your head. Why do they seem so angry at each other instead of at me? Because you've become a mirror they can't look away from. Your existence reflects back the truth they've been hiding, and it's easier for them to project their guilt onto each other than to face what they've done to you. This isn't just a fight, it's a confession disguised as rage. Every word they throw is another brick falling off the wall they built. This is the part that should make you smile quietly to yourself. They thought they could rewrite your story, that their whispers could erase your impact. But you're still here. Their alliance, built on smearing your name, is collapsing under the weight of its own falsehoods. Without the glue of a mutual lie, their bond has turned into rivalry. Allies become enemies. Their shared narrative becomes a battlefield. And while they bleed from their own deception, you stand there untouched, your name shining brighter in the rubble. Here's a fact from social psychology that screams, this is exactly what's happening. When two or more people build a bond on a shared falsehood, that bond becomes toxic the moment the falsehood is exposed. It doesn't just dissolve, it implodes. They start turning on each other, trying to escape blame, each one desperate to rewrite the ending before it's too late. That's the storm you're watching unfold. You don't need to gloat. You don't need to get your hands dirty. Just understand what's happening. This isn't random drama. This is the universe showing you what happens when people weaponize lies against someone who never deserved it. It's showing you that patience and truth are sharper than revenge. They do the work for you. They expose themselves. And maybe the biggest question of all, will they ever admit they were wrong about me? Maybe not out loud. Pride is a cage that some people never escape. But their actions, their panic, their public collapse, that's their admission. It's louder than any apology. It's louder than any confession they could make. And you don't need their words anymore. The proof is in the wreckage. So hold your head high, chosen one. This is not just the day their lies came home. This is the day you saw the universe at work on your behalf. This is the day the truth walked into the room and kicked the door down. Their performance is over. The curtain has fallen. And now everyone watching knows who was playing what role. You didn't erase them. You didn't destroy them. You simply refused to disappear, and that refusal was enough to let the truth do its work. Their lies became their executioner. Their alliance turned into a battlefield. Their voices turned into confessions. And through it all, you stood still, untouched, undeniable, unstoppable. This isn't just a story about them. It's a warning about what happens when people underestimate someone like you. They thought you were easy to erase. They thought the truth would stay hidden forever. But the day came when their lies circled back. And it wasn't a gentle tap on the shoulder. It was a hammer to the chest, a flood through the gates, a storm tearing the roof off. That's what happens when you build a house on sand and then pretend it's stone. And now, as you listen to this, know this too. This is only the first stage. The explosion you've just witnessed is just the opening act. The lies they told about you have already sparked the fight. But the aftershocks, the changes in how they see each other, how others see you, how the truth reshapes everything, those are still coming. Stay calm, stay centered, because while they're scrambling, you're rising. This is your moment of clarity. This is your moment of quiet triumph. The day their lies came home didn't just expose them. It validated you. It proved that you don't have to twist or fight to be seen. All you have to do is be, and eventually the universe makes sure the truth kicks the door down. That's the power you carry, chosen one. That's the power they underestimated. And that's why, from this day forward, they'll never be able to tell the same story about you again. Number 2. When their illusions collided head-on with reality. A lie can wear armor, but the truth carries a sledgehammer. That's exactly what you just witnessed, chosen one. This wasn't some small disagreement or passing moment of drama. It was a collision. On one side stood the illusion they'd been selling to everyone, the world where they were in control, admired, untouchable, and unbothered by you. On the other side stood reality, raw, unpolished, and impossible to spin. When those two forces met, it wasn't a handshake. It was an explosion. The sound of their carefully crafted image shattering was deafening. Here's another truth you can etch into your bones. Denial has a clock, and when it strikes zero, the mask always falls. They had been living off borrowed time. Resentment, jealousy, fear, all of it had been brewing just under the surface. Pretending not to see you drained them. Pretending you didn't matter corroded them from the inside out. They thought they could live in that denial forever, but denial is like ice on a hot day. It only holds for so long before it melts. And when it melted, it wasn't gentle. It was catastrophic. Every grudge they'd hidden, every secret they'd buried, every truth they swore they'd never admit came pouring out like floodwaters breaking through a dam. Now imagine this, Chosen One, a train racing full speed down the tracks, full of passengers who believe everything is safe. For years it barrels forward, fueled by lies and self-deception. But from the opposite direction another train is coming, the truth. Neither slows down, neither even sees the other until it's too late. When they finally collide, the wreckage doesn't just affect the conductors, it shakes every passenger, every bystander, every piece of the track. That's exactly what happened here. The illusion they built about you slammed head-on into the reality of who you really are, and the impact scattered everything they'd been trying to hold together. You may be asking yourself, why now? Why not years ago? Because illusions need time to grow heavy. Lies need time to get tangled. The universe waits until the weight of those lies is unbearable, and then, at the perfect moment, it brings the truth crashing in like a tidal wave. You can run from the truth, but you can't outrun the tide. That's what happened to them. They built their entire performance on shifting sand, and now the waves have come to drag it all out to sea. Picture this instead, a masquerade ball. Everyone wears masks, everyone smiling, dancing, acting like they're enjoying themselves. But one guest stands still in the center, you. You're not wearing a mask. You're not playing along. At first, they ignore you. Then they whisper about you. Then they try to convince others you don't belong. But when the music stops and the lights come on, everyone's face is revealed. The masks they swore would never slide right off, and now they're the ones exposed while you're still standing there, unmasked and unbothered. That's the moment we're talking about. And here's a quote to drive it even deeper. Illusions can sparkle, but they can't survive daylight. That's why they panicked, Chosen One. Deep down, they always knew who you were. They caught glimpses of your power in the way you moved, the way you refused to shrink to fit their comfort zones. They felt it, they feared it, and instead of respecting it, they tried to cover it. Why? Because you were the crack in their perfect little wall. They knew one day that crack would spread until the whole thing collapsed. This fight, this meltdown, it wasn't random. It was the collapse they always feared. Maybe you're wondering, did I cause this? Was it something I did? No, you didn't cause it. You revealed it. That's the difference. Your presence alone forces illusions to shatter. It strips away lies without you even speaking. That's how powerful you are. The irony? In trying to erase you, they've made you unforgettable. The fight that was meant to bury your name only echoed it louder. That's the universe flipping the script, reminding you that illusion never survives when it crashes into truth. And truth always wins. Here's another image for you. Imagine a glass window covered in dust and dirt. For years, they've been painting over it, layer after layer, hoping no one can see through. But your light, the way you live, the way you exist, hits that glass like sunlight. At first, it just highlights the dirt. Then it heats it, and eventually it cracks the glass completely. They're standing there, holding shards, wondering how their window shattered, while you're still shining on the other side. And another quote for your arsenal. The more tightly you hold an illusion, the sharper it cuts when it breaks. That's why they're bleeding now. They clung to their narrative about you like it was oxygen. They built their alliances, their reputations, their social image around it. But when the break came, it was a blade. And because you didn't fight, because you didn't stoop to their level, the blade only cut them, not you. This might make you wonder, will they finally see me for who I am now? Maybe, maybe not. Pride is a cage. Some people would rather choke on their own lies than admit the truth out loud. But that's not your job to fix. Their fight, their crash, their wreckage, that's their confession. It's louder than any apology they could ever make. It's them saying without words, "We couldn't handle you. We lied. We broke ourselves trying to bury you, and now the world can see it too." Think about a stage performance. For years, they've been the actors, you've been the villain in their script, and everyone else has been the audience. But here's the twist. The stage is crumbling, the props are falling apart, the lights are flickering, and their costumes are tearing at the seams. The audience is no longer fooled. They're whispering, pointing, realizing the actors were lying the whole time. And you? You're off stage, standing in the wings, watching the show end exactly as it was always going to. This is what the universe does for you when you hold your ground. It lets illusions collapse under their own weight. It lets people expose themselves. It flips the energy so that what was meant to harm you becomes your proof, your validation, your protection. So hold this truth close, Chosen One. You didn't have to fight for this moment. You didn't have to argue or beg or defend yourself endlessly. You simply stayed rooted in who you are, and that alone was enough to bring the illusion crashing into truth. Their meltdown was their moment of reckoning. Your stillness was your power. Another quote for you to carry. Truth doesn't compete with illusion. It waits for it to self-destruct. That's what just happened. They self-destructed. They revealed themselves. They turned on each other while your name rose above the noise. This isn't just about their fight. It's about your transformation. It's proof that you're not who they said you were. It's proof that you don't have to burn yourself out trying to be believed. The truth always finds a way. It found you. It surrounded you. And now it's dismantling every falsehood that's been thrown at you, piece by piece. Stay calm. Stay steady. Because while they're scrambling to rebuild their illusions, you're rising above the wreckage. This is your moment of clarity, your moment of quiet triumph. The illusion they built to contain you has crashed into the truth, and the impact has shattered everything. You didn't just survive it, you became the reason it happened. And that, Chosen One, is your real power. Number 3. When their regret becomes a life sentence. Regret isn't a shadow behind you, it's a cell you build around yourself, brick by brick. That's exactly where they are now, Chosen One, locked inside walls they constructed with their own hands. Regret doesn't come crashing in like thunder. It seeps, slow and silent, like water through stone. At first, it's invisible. Then, one day, you're ankle deep, then waist deep, and before you know it, you're drowning. That's what's happening to them right now. Every inhale pulls up another memory of what they did to you. The lies, the smears, the casual disrespect. What used to be just passing thoughts they could brush off have hardened into heavy iron links. The chain they forged now wraps tight around their chest, making every breath a confession. And here's a brutal truth they'd never say out loud. Freedom is still possible. The door to their cell is open, but walking through it would mean admitting they were wrong about you, and their pride is heavier than any lock. So they stay put. Science backs this up. Suppressed emotions don't dissolve, they ferment. What they ignored about you hasn't faded. It's curdled into bitterness, an acid they can't spit out. Denial was their slow poison, and now the antidote, the truth, is right in front of them, but they're too afraid to drink it. Imagine this, Chosen One, a grand hall gone silent after a party. Confetti on the floor, broken glasses everywhere, the lights too bright now that the music has stopped. That's their mind. Every fake smile, every careless word about you echoes in that silence. The walls they built for protection have become an echo chamber. Regret fires the first shot, guilt answers back, and every memory of you is another blow they can't dodge. This is where you win without lifting a finger. Their own mind has become your witness and testifies against them daily. They're haunted, they're suffocating, and the cruelest part, there's no escape from regret, no hiding place, no mask thick enough to muffle the truth whispering your name. That's their life sentence. And you're free, watching from outside as the walls they built close in on them. Number 4. When truth became the wrecking ball they couldn't dodge. You can play hide and seek with a rumor, but you can't hide from the truth when it comes kicking the door off its hinges. That's exactly what's happening now, Chosen One. This isn't just guilt scratching at their conscience. This is truth, coming like a wrecking ball, shattering every false wall they built. For years, they thought they were clever. They buried evidence, rewrote scenes, pretended you didn't exist. But truth isn't a rumor. Truth is a predator. It stalks quietly, patiently, until the moment you've stopped running, and then it strikes. And when it strikes, it doesn't just tap, it levels everything in its path. Imagine this, a freight train tearing down the tracks at night, no brakes, no warning, just pure force. They're standing there, convinced they've got time, telling themselves if they just look the other way, the sound will fade. But the sound doesn't fade. It grows, louder, closer, until it's all around them. And when it hits, it doesn't just nudge them aside. It vaporizes the masks they've been wearing, the fake smiles, the smug dismissals, the I don't care shrugs. All of it obliterated in one violent collision. You might be thinking, why does truth hit harder the longer it's delayed? Because truth feeds on resistance. The more they fought it, the heavier it became. By the time it arrived, it wasn't just a fact. It was a force of nature. That's why fists flew, words cracked like thunder, and tempers boiled over. This wasn't just an argument. It was the unveiling of everything they'd tried to hide. And once a mask breaks, you can't glue it back together. The shards cut too deep. Everyone sees what's underneath. And where were you, Chosen One? Not in the chaos, not fighting for your name. You were the freight train all along. Your presence, your authenticity, your refusal to bend became the engine they couldn't derail. The truth sat at the table that day, silent but undeniable, and forced them to confront everything they'd been running from. That's how truth works. It doesn't arrive on your schedule. It arrives on its own, and when it comes, no one walks away untouched. Number 5. When their fantasy collapsed under its own weight. A lie doesn't just rot, it becomes its own undertaker. That's the reality they're choking on now, Chosen One. For years, they funneled their energy into constructing a fantasy about you, a make-believe world where you were invisible, unworthy, forgettable. They hid their admiration behind cheap insults. They buried their jealousy under plastic smiles. They disguised their fear with arrogance, hoping no one would notice the tremble beneath the act. Layer by layer, they built a cardboard castle of illusion, convinced it would stand forever. But illusions are heavy. They don't just float in the air, they hang like anchors around the soul. Eventually, the structure caves in under its own weight, and that's exactly what you're watching now. They believed ignoring you would erase you. They thought starving you of acknowledgement would dim your light. But truth doesn't starve. It doesn't fade without applause. It grows in silence. It sharpens in the dark. And it becomes uncontainable. The more they denied it, the more powerful it became. So when the fight erupted, it wasn't just another heated moment. It was the implosion of everything they'd tried to hide, the collapse of the theater they'd been performing in. Their voices faltered, their composure cracked, the paint peeled off the mask in real time. Imagine this, a skyscraper built on rotten beams. At first, it dazzles. It looks indestructible. People stare up at it in awe. But every new floor, every extra weight of lies stacked on top, strains the foundation until it's one gust of truth away from total collapse. And then, without warning, the entire structure falls in one devastating rush. That's what happened when their facade finally gave way. And the beauty of it? You didn't have to lift a single finger. You didn't have to play their game. You simply stood in your truth, while the gravity of their deception dragged them down. Now the mask is gone. The illusion lies in jagged pieces at their feet. No matter how hard they try to glue it back together, everyone has already seen the cracks. This is the end of their fantasy and the start of their reckoning. Because when illusions fall, they don't fall quietly. They crash loudly, and their crash is your confirmation. Number 6. When the trap they built became their own cage. You can rewrite the script 1,000 times, but the truth always keeps the original. That's what they're learning now, Chosen One. For years, their escape plan seemed flawless. Twist the facts, retell the story, paint you as the villain while they played the hero. They thought if they controlled the narrative, they could control reality itself. But truth isn't a servant. It doesn't take orders, it doesn't bend, and it never forgets. It waits, it grows, and when the time is right, it walks into the room and closes every door behind it. Their lives were always built on fragile ground, a house of cards stacked on quicksand, decorated with arrogance and painted with fake confidence. Underneath it was nothing but hollowness. All it took was one gust of reality, one spark of exposure, and the entire structure imploded. Lies may sprint, but truth has endurance. It doesn't get tired, it doesn't lose its trail, and when it catches up, it doesn't tap politely on the shoulder. It slams the door and bolts it shut. That's what you're watching now, their own walls closing in. You might be thinking, can't they just slip out again? Can't they lie their way back to safety? Not this time. They've run out of exits. Their tricks, the fake innocence, the victim act, the casual denial, don't work anymore because everyone has already seen behind the curtain. The masks are gone. The stories contradict. Every escape route leads back to the same dead end. Imagine a maze where every turn looks like freedom, but ends in the same brick wall. That's their life now, endless running, no exit. Here's the part they never saw coming. Justice doesn't need your permission. You didn't have to chase it. You didn't have to beg for it. What was done in the dark has been dragged into the light, not because you demanded it, but because it was inevitable. The universe doesn't lose evidence. It doesn't misplace timing. Now they're out of masks, out of excuses, out of moves. And for the first time, the scariest part isn't facing you. It's facing themselves, stripped of every illusion, staring into the mirror they've avoided for years. Number 7. The day their deception collapsed under your shadow. Lies are castles built on sand. Your presence is the tide that wipes them clean. That's exactly what happened, Chosen One. This wasn't a petty spat or a disagreement over scraps. This was the day truth and illusion collided head-on, and the shockwave tore through everything they'd built. For too long, deception ruled their tiny kingdom. They inhaled it, fed on it, clothed themselves in it, and convinced themselves it was unshakable. But the moment truth walked in, the ground beneath them cracked. They didn't stumble because of what you said. They stumbled because of what you are. Here's what they'll never tell anyone. Their fear was never really about you. It was about what you represented. You are the living proof that truth doesn't have to scream to be felt. It doesn't have to fight to be dangerous. It just has to show up. Your energy alone makes liars sweat, makes hands tremble, makes masks slip. They weren't battling you. They were battling the reflection you forced them to see. You became a mirror, and that reflection was merciless. Imagine a dark theater where actors have been playing the same tired role for years. The audience claps, the backdrop looks solid, the script seems polished. Then a spotlight blazes on, revealing every crack in the set, every false move, every slip in the script. That spotlight is you, Chosen One. Lies can thrive in the dark, but they disintegrate under your light. The performance ends the moment you arrive because your presence makes pretense impossible. This fight wasn't about words, it was about energy. Your very existence made deception lose its grip, and once that grip loosened, the whole structure fell apart like rotten timber under pressure. They wanted to believe their masks could withstand anything, but truth doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait for the right time. When it enters, it ends. Chapters people thought would last forever. That's what you did without lifting a finger. You didn't just walk into their story, Chosen One. You became the plot twist they never saw coming. The day their lies met their match wasn't just a moment. It was an ending they can never rewrite. Number 8. The signs they mocked became the storm that hit them. The truth doesn't creep in on tiptoe. It marches in boots, and you only get crushed if you pretend not to hear it coming. That's what happened here, Chosen One. This explosion wasn't random. It was the result of 1,000 flashing warning lights they chose to ignore. The signs were scattered everywhere like breadcrumbs leading them to safety. But breadcrumbs only work if you're humble enough to follow them. They refused, because noticing meant admitting, and admitting meant facing the very truth they buried under lies. The universe never ambushes without notice. It sends signals, some subtle, some screaming. A sunflower on a stranger's desk, bright as a beacon, whispering illumination. Roses, beautiful but hiding knives in their stems, reminding them admiration and resentment are always tangled. Lizards crossing their path, symbols of transformation, signaling that change is inevitable whether they liked it or not. Each sign was a flare in the dark. Prepare yourself. The truth is circling closer. But they mocked the signs, rolled their eyes, convinced themselves they were untouchable. And even the digital world turned on them. Screenshots leaked, messages surfaced, private words they swore would never see daylight spilled out for everyone to read. Their vault of lies was never sealed. It was cracking the entire time. The leaks weren't bad luck. They were inevitability. That's how truth works. It gives liars a chance to come clean, to confess on their own terms. But if they don't, it arranges exposure for them. That's why their confrontation wasn't chance. It was the bill coming due, the storm arriving exactly on time. You might wonder, could they have stopped this? They could have, by telling the truth early, by owning their actions before the universe forced it. But they chose to ignore every sign, every leak, every whisper. And warnings don't vanish when you laugh at them. They become disasters. That's what you're witnessing now, Chosen One. Not chaos out of nowhere, but a storm they built themselves by walking past every exit. Their time didn't run out because of bad luck. It ran out because they refused to read the writing on the wall. And when you ignore the writing long enough, the wall itself collapses on top of you. Number 9. The day they crossed a line they can't uncross. Once the truth escapes, it doesn't echo, it detonates. That's the moment they're living in now, Chosen One. This wasn't just another flare-up that will cool down in a week. This was the point where their stories snapped, where everything they built hit a wall they can't climb back over. When they moved against you, they weren't just playing with your name. They were colliding with something far bigger, the unstoppable current of truth. And truth doesn't sparkle lightly. It sweeps in like a storm, tearing illusions out by their roots and scattering them for everyone to see. The fallout is everywhere now. Trust that once propped them up has evaporated like mist. People who used to nod along now raise their eyebrows. Their influence, once as easy as breathing, slips through their fingers like dry sand. The whispers they once brushed off as harmless gossip are now spoken openly, repeated louder, each retelling sharper than the last. Their credibility isn't bruised, it's imploding. Can they fix it? No, not this time. This isn't punishment. This is the natural order at work. You don't build a fortress on lies and expect it to stand forever. The truth, once released, doesn't retreat. It doesn't fade. It keeps moving forward, sweeping away everything built on deception. Imagine them standing at the edge of the ocean, trying to hold back the tide with their bare hands. Every wave crashes harder, dragging away another piece of their illusion until all that's left is the wreckage they created. Here's the most brutal part. Truth isn't an attack, it's exposure. It's the unveiling of what was always there, and that unveiling is permanent. They can deny it, spin it, play the victim, even cry for sympathy. But it won't matter. The truth has already burned its imprint into people's minds. No mask, no performance, no apology can erase it. This was the point of no return. They crossed it the moment their lies cracked open for the world to see. From this day forward, every step they take will be haunted by the memory of what they did and who they did it to. The storm they tried to outrun has become their permanent shadow. Number 10. When the smoke cleared and their masks lay in ruins. After the fire burns out, the ashes tell the truth the flames tried to hide. That's where they are now, Chosen One. The shouting has stopped, the chaos has died down, but the silence left behind is deafening. This is the aftermath. The moment when the dust settles and every mask they ever wore lies in pieces at their feet. And here's the part they can't accept. No matter how hard they try, those masks can't be put back on. Masks only work when people still believe in them. Once they crack, once even a sliver of the truth slips through, the illusion is dead, and the human mind doesn't forget exposure. Even if no one says it out loud, that moment is etched in memory like a scar. That's where your enemies stand now, scrambling to paste broken pieces back together while everyone quietly remembers the face they saw beneath. Imagine a circus performer whose costume rips wide open under the brightest spotlight. The crowd gasps, laughs, whispers. The show might continue, but the magic is gone forever. No amount of makeup or props can erase what the audience has already witnessed. That's what happened here, the unmasking. And once it happens, there's no going back to the performance. But here's the twist that cuts the deepest. It isn't just that their lies were exposed to others, they were exposed to themselves. And that's the punishment that stings the most. When the dust settles, they're left staring into a mirror with no curtain to hide behind. Every fake smile, every smug dismissal, every carefully rehearsed denial, they see it all now for what it was. And the reflection staring back isn't a hero, it's the villain of their own story. That's the torment, Chosen One. They didn't just lose credibility in the eyes of others, they lost the ability to lie to themselves without flinching. And that's a mask they'll never be able to wear again. Number 11. When the Court of Truth passed its sentence. Sometimes justice doesn't wait for a judge. It drags liars into the spotlight and lets their own words convict them. That's exactly what happened, Chosen One. That explosive fight wasn't just chaos, it was a trial, and they weren't ready for it. They became the defendants. Their lies became the evidence. The eruption of truth was the verdict. And you didn't even have to show up. Your silence roared louder than any defense ever could. Think about it. A trial isn't just about facts, it's about exposure. Lies always collapse under cross-examination, and that's what happened here. Every excuse contradicted the last. Every desperate defense twisted back into an admission of guilt. As the argument spiraled, anyone watching could see it. Nothing they said held weight. Their story sagged under its own contradictions. Their masks slipped. Their truth turned into obvious fiction. And fiction never survives when reality demands receipts. Imagine them under a scorching spotlight, voices cracking, stumbling over their own words as the evidence piled higher. Every lie they told about you was another piece of proof against them. Every whisper they spread was another nail in the coffin of their credibility. And the more they spoke, the deeper they buried themselves. That's the irony of exposure. Liars don't need an enemy. They self-destruct right in front of the crowd. And here's what they never saw coming. Your power was never about shouting them down. It was about existing. Your authenticity, your refusal to play their dirty games, became the evidence of their defeat. That's why this trial was one-sided from the start. The universe didn't need your testimony. It already had it written in every action, every lie, every crack in their performance. Everyone watching saw it too. The verdict was undeniable. Guilty of lies, guilty of envy, guilty of underestimating you. And the sentence, a lifetime of exposure. Because once the masks are gone, there's no parole, no escape, no retrial. They stood before the court of truth and lost, and the world will never see them the same again. Number 12. The power they tried to bury but couldn't escape. You can smother a flame, but you can't put out the sun. That's the force they've been wrestling with. Chosen one, you. They believed silence would erase you. They thought ridicule would shrink you. They hoped lies would bury you. But every attempt to erase you only magnified your presence. Like pressing down on a spring, the harder they pushed, the higher you rose. Until eventually you became too large, too undeniable, too woven into their reality to ignore. Think about gravity. You can't see it, but it's inescapable. You can't outrun it, you can't outsmart it, you can't switch it off. That's what your energy is like. Even when you're silent, even when you're not in the room, you're a pull they can't resist. Their minds circle back to you at night. Their conversations drift back to you in daylight. Their emotions orbit you whether they admit it or not. That's why their fight wasn't really with each other. It was with the invisible force of you pressing down on everything they tried to hide. They underestimated you because they thought power only comes from noise. They thought your strength was in your words, your actions, your presence in the room. But your true power is in your existence. You don't need to prove anything because the universe already stamped you with significance. That's why their lies collapsed under their own weight. That's why the truth cut so deep. They couldn't bend your reality to fit their story, because your reality was always bigger than their story. Picture the tide pulling against someone trying to hold back the ocean with a broom. They can push, they can scream, they can pretend they're winning, but the water keeps coming. And when the wave finally breaks, it doesn't just nudge them, it swallows them whole. That's your force, chosen one. It humbled them. It broke their performance. It reminded them of the one thing they swore they'd never admit. You were always too powerful to ignore. Number 13. When your silence became their downfall. Sometimes the sharpest blade isn't your voice. It's the silence that cuts deeper than sound. That's the weapon you've been wielding, chosen one. They came prepared for a war of words. They braced for insults, for shouting, for a public spectacle where they could flip the script and play the victim while making you look like the aggressor. But instead, you gave them nothing. No sparks, no fuel, just silence. And that silence echoed so loudly it tore through every lie they tried to hang on to. Silence is not surrender, it's strategy. It's a mirror that forces people to stare at their own reflection with no distractions. Every word they hurl now bounces back, unanswered. Every smear they sling dies mid-air, because there's nothing on your side to push against. That's why they're unraveling, not because you attacked, but because you refused to step onto their stage. Imagine a theater packed with actors, shouting lines with passion, costumes glittering under the lights. But the seats are empty. No applause, no reaction, no validation. That's what your silence has created. Their performance plays out in a void, and the silence swallows them whole. The louder they get, the more desperate they look. And here's the cruel beauty. When the truth has already come out, silence isn't emptiness, it's amplification. It's the megaphone that makes their guilt louder, their lies more obvious, their desperation undeniable. You didn't need to strike, because your silence left them swinging at shadows, burning themselves out. That's the lesson they never wanted to learn. Power isn't always noise. Sometimes the strongest presence is the one that stands still, unshaken, untouchable, while chaos eats itself alive. That's why your silence isn't just revenge, it's justice. It's the final act of their play, and when the curtain drops, you're the only one left standing while they choke on their own words. Number 14. When their own echo became their sentence. Choices may pass, but their echoes live longer than the people who made them. That's the cage they're stuck in now, chosen one, trapped inside the endless replay of their own actions. They thought they could betray you, twist the story, and stroll away untouched. But betrayal doesn't wash off. It stains. You can scrub, bleach, or cover it up with layers of performance, but deep down, you always know it's there. And eventually, the stain bleeds through for everyone else to see. Trust has evaporated like smoke in the wind. Bridges they crossed every day are reduced to ashes. Alliances they leaned on have cracked and fallen apart, all without you lifting a finger. People who once stood beside them now hesitate, not because of anything you've done, but because of the rot they revealed about themselves. Their reputation isn't limping, it's permanently scarred. Imagine a crisp white shirt with a thick, dark stain right in the center. You can hide it under a jacket, stitch a patch over it, or pretend it's nothing, but you'll always know it's there. That's what betrayal is. A mark burned into memory. It follows them into every room, hidden in glances, lingering in whispers. Some shadows aren't cast by the sun, they're cast by decisions. And those shadows don't fade, they travel with you. They can change cities, reinvent themselves, invent new versions of their story, but the echo follows, because echoes don't die quickly. They stretch, they linger, they seep into the future, whispering reminders of every wrong step. And here's the irony. They thought their actions were final, forgotten. But actions are temporary. It's the echo that lasts forever. And the more they try to outrun it, the louder it becomes, until the only soundtrack left in their silence is the reminder of what they did to you. That's their reality now, chosen one. Not your revenge, not your doing, the echo of their own choices, chasing them into every corner of their existence. So, chosen one, you've seen it with your own eyes, their lies collapsing, their masks shattering, and the truth echoing louder than ever. This was never about revenge. It was about confirmation. You didn't have to lift a finger. The universe did the heavy work. Their downfall is the proof of your power. And this is only the beginning. So if this message hit home, press that like button if you haven't already. And if you're still not part of our family, make sure to press subscribe now, because together we spread the light wider and stronger.